till date of unit number 3. And then last part which is remaining from unit 3 is Java collection framework that we'll see today. And one more small part was remaining, that is static keyword, how static is useful in Java, what is the meaning of static variable and static method, that we are going to see today. So quickly I'll just go through the slides. So we have seen what is this keyword. This keyword will point to the current object. It will point to the current object in a method or a constructor. Sometimes we need to invoke current class constructor or current class method, or we want to refer current class object. For that we use this keyword. And we have seen the example of this keyword with the box class example. The next important keyword in Java, it is also called modifier, that is static. So we can use static keyword not only for variables but also for methods. So we can have static variables as well as static methods. So this is like a global variable, or it is also called as class variable. So this variable is only memory is allocated to this variable in a static memory, that is it is available to the all objects of a class. So there will be the times when you will want to define a class member that will used independently of any object of that class. For example, if I'm working on a student object, I want to create a class student and student objects and with different roll numbers, but I need a count. And whenever I add a new student or I create a new object of class student, that count should get incremented. And whenever I delete any student from my class, the number of students, that count should get decremented. And whenever we want to display or update students or search for a student, we need that count, and that count should be the constant for any object. So in that case we can go with a static variable. So this is an whenever we define a variables in a class, those are class members, and these are called instance variables. For every object, memory gets allocated to those variables. Like in complex number we have seen real and imaginary. In previous lecture we have seen stack class. We have allocated memory for array and top. So that is for each and every object of that class, object will get the memory, or the variable will get memory. But in case of static variable, memory is allocated to only once and all objects will refer to that particular variable. Let me give one example here. I hope this is visible, Python tutor. So instead of static, if I'm using a normal variable, int a and int b, I have a class ABC. I have class ABC and I have a constructor. Okay. The simple, I have one class ABC with two variables A and B, a constructor which will initialize this variable, and display method which will display value of these variables A, B. And in another class, that is in main, I have created two objects A1 and A2 of ABC class and pass some values. See here, I'll pass 2, 3, and here I'll pass 10, 12, any values, and this is a display function. It is like any other class, and these are class variables. Okay, semicolon is missing. So whenever you define variables in a class, these variables are called instance variables, and separate memory is allocated for A1 and A2 objects. So you can see here, this is current object. Current object is A1. We are talking about A1. You can see a green arrow here. X and Y. These are formal parameters, X and Y. Values is 2 and 3 that we passed to the constructor. And A and B are ABC instance variables of a class ABC, currently initialized to 0, 0, 0. And these values will get allocated to A and B. You can see here A1. Now that this is A1 object which has two variables, instance variables AB with values 3 and 2. Another instance is created. This only this part will execute first new ABC 10, 12. So x value of x is 10, value of y is 12. Again, these are formal parameters, and value it will assign values to AB. Now this A and B is for A2 dot A and A2 dot B. So these values are of A1 and A2. A1 has values 3, 2, A2 has values 10 and 12 and 10. Here, why? Because here I assigned A is equal to Y. That's why it is 12 and 10. And display function will execute for A1. It will display value 3, 2. And for A2, it will display value 12, 10. Okay. So this is in case of normal variables, when variables are not static. But suppose I use static keyword here for A. I'm not passing any value for A. A is a static variable. So let me assign some value here itself. So as a constructor has only one parameter, I'm passing only one value to the constructor. Any value 2, 3. So see the difference between with static and without static variable. We can run this code with online Java editor, but I want to show you how memory gets allocated to non-static variables and static variables. So see here, memory is allocated to ABC dot A. What is ABC? ABC is your class name. Class name variable A. So A is a class variable. It is not allocated for A1 or A2. It is a static field. Memory is allocated statically to A. And then when object gets created, only one variable is there, B. So for every object, there will be only one variable, B. And A1 and A2 will share this variable in common. So A1 separate memory is allocated for B, for A2 separate memory is allocated for B, but memory which is allocated to A will be common between A1 and A2. So if we call display function, it will display 10, 2, and for A2 it will display 10, 3. Now my question is, can A1 able to modify this value? A1 dot suppose A is equal to A1 dot A plus 2. Is it possible? Can we change this value of A, which is 10? Can we modify this value? With any one object can modify this value? Can we access this variable with A1 dot using dot operator? Access static variable, no need of an object. We can access static variables with class name itself, abc dot a, or any object can modify that value, doesn't matter. I can use abc dot a is equal to, sorry, a1 dot a is equal to a1 dot a plus 2, any operation. And note that when one object modifies that value, it will be reflected for all other objects. So only one copy will be stored for all objects. It is not like instance variables. There are multiple copies for every object has its own copy. But in case of static variable, so now static, these values are getting displayed. So display function, these two display functions executed and we got this result. Now we are performing this operation. A1.a is equal to A1.a plus 2. So one object is modifying that value. So this value gets modified to 2. And when we display it again with A1 object and A2 object, we get 12.2 and 12.3. So only one copy of that variable is maintained for all objects. Now here I have taken only example of two objects, A1, A2. We can have any number of objects, and for all those objects can refer to a single copy of A. Is it clear what is static variable means?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now you can go through the theory. There will be the times when you will want to define a class member that will be used independently of any object of that class. So static variable is independent of any object. It's a class variable. So normally a class member must be accessed only in conjunction with an object of its class. You can call a method or you can access variables of a class with the object of that class. But it is possible to create a member that can be used by itself, that is by the class, without reference to the specific instance or object. To create such member, we need to precede its declaration with the keyword static. So when a member is declared a static, member can be a member variable or member method function. It can be accessed before any object of its class is created and without reference to any object. We have seen that before creating any object, memory is allocated to the static variable. You can declare both methods and variables to be static. Most common example of static member is main. Main is public static void main. So static keyword we used in main, because main, to call main, operating system program starts executing from main. So operating system has to find where main is. That's why your class name and the class which contains main should match, right? Now to execute main method, the compiler needs to call main method. And how compiler will call main method without creating any object? With the class name itself. And class name and file name is same. So compiler knows what is a class name in which main method resides. So main method is called without creating any object. Why? Because main method is defined as static. Main is declared as static because it must be called before any object exists. So instance variables means the variables which are non-static variables, which are instance variables which are declared statics are global variables, means common to all objects of that particular class. When object of its class are declared, no copy of static variable is made. So a static variable maintains only one copy for all objects of that class. All instances of a class share the same static variable. So methods can be declared as static, have several restrictions. We can declare static methods. They can only directly called other static methods. So static methods can call other static methods. They can only directly access static data and they cannot refer to this or super in any way, because this is instance dependent. This is used for different objects. Even super is used in hierarchy to call base class constructor or base class variable. We're going to see what is super in the next unit. But you can in static method we cannot access this or super. Now static methods can call other static methods and static methods can access static data. So here is one more example of static variable method and block. So class use of statics. Here we have defined two static variables A and B, and method which is also static method, void math int x, value of x, value of A and value of B. We are printing these three values. And static is just a block. System.out.println static block initialized. We can define a block. Block means opening bracket and closing bracket. this can be a block, while block, or for block. It is not a method, or it is not the uh, constructor. It is just a block. And this is main method. See here, we are calling math with value without use of a class, without use of any object. Because note that all these methods are in a same class, use static. So main method can call this math method. If main is in another class, then to call math method, main will require this class name, use static dot math. Now in static block is initialized with a into 4 and b. So how you are getting these values? Static block initialized. So it will call main method first. Main method, then initializing, before calling this math method, static block will get executed. So it will print system.out.println static block initialized. Then value of what static block will do, b is equal to a into 4. So b is initially 0, value of a is 3, 3 into 4, which will be 12. So value of b will be 12. And then it will come back to main, and math method will be called with the value 42. So this 42 will be passed to x, x is equal to 42, a is equal to 3, and b is equal to 12. So you'll get this answer. Let's check whether we are getting this answer or not. Instead of use static, I'll use the class ABC, same name, class ABC here, and int x. So this is the math method. Edit this code. Method is static, math method. I need to give some name, return type, int x, and system.out.println x is okay. X is x, and a and b is a and b. Okay. No need of display function. Instead of that, no need of this class. We need all these things in this main class, main method. And in this class, we have defined two static variables, static a, static b, and static method math, and then static block. And this block will, what we are going to do, b is equal to 3 into a, or 4 into a. What was that? Okay, a is 3, and it is a into 4 or 4 into a. Okay, we have created the objects, and let's call main method a1.math. With value 42, semicolon. So in this class, we have used, okay, class name should be this, your class name. No need to create object. We are using static method. No need of A1. We just call main math method. Or class name dot math. M is capital. Now look at this example carefully. So for class, these two variables are class variables, not instance variables. Your class name here dot A and dot B, and A is 3 that we have assigned here. And note that before even execution of first line, that is calling this function, this block gets executed and 4 into 3, that is 12, is stored here in the static variable. Okay, let me visualize this again. Go back here. So whenever you start executing a code, first it will look at the static keyword and allocate memory to that. So first it will initialize at line number 3, then 13. This block will get initialized 4 into 3, that is 12. And this memory gets allocated for A and B with value 3 and 12. And then it will call math method. Here we passed value 42, which is for X. So it will display X is 42, A is 3 and B is 12. So we can define a block static, a method static like main, or a math function, and variables as a static variable. If main is in another class, if this part is in another class and main is in another class, then to call this function math, here no need to create object. Using class name, you can call this function math. So now A and B are class variables for ABC class. They got initialized first and then this method will execute and you'll get the output. Is it clear? We can define variable static as well as method as a static method. And static methods and static variables are belong to the class, not to any object. This is another example, class static demo. Int A is 42, int B is 99. We can initialize variables here itself. No need of a constructor. And static method, say void call me, and it will print A. And class static by name, static demo dot call me. Note that we have called this method with the class name. And static demo dot b, and we can use or display variable with the help of class name, not like static demo s1 is equal to new static demo and s1 dot call me or s1 dot b. No need to use any variable. We can directly use class name to call a method as well as to access a variable. Then we have seen what is the term polymorphism. We have seen what is meaning of function overloading, overriding, static polymorphism. We have seen these examples. We have seen what are different ways to pass value to a method, parameter passing methods, pass by value and pass by reference, call by value and call by reference, or pass by value, pass by reference, one and the same thing. We have seen these examples. Then we have seen function overloading and method constructor overloading. We have seen the concept of arrays, one-dimensional array, two-dimensional array, and how to create 3D array. In Java, arrays are nothing but objects. So array come with methods like length. Length is a constant which defines the string length. Length is instance of variable. So for every array, we can get length with the length constant a1 dot length. It will display length of that particular array. Then we, as an example of a class array, we have created abstract data type, that is the stack, with methods push and pop. I had explained you this code, how to create a stack and check, add and display values to the stack. Then we have seen a string. From today, your labs are going to be started for FPL2, and your first assignment is string operations. So just go through these slides properly. What is a string, how to create a string, how to display a string, and what are different string operations that you can perform on string, and string buffer and string builder. We have seen all these operations on strings in previous sessions. Now, next topic is Java collection framework. Any queries till date or the topics that we have covered from unit number 3? Shall we start with Java collection framework? So, in previous lecture, we have created a class say stack or set, and we have defined its methods, and we have checked whether it is working properly or not. We have seen how to get union, intersection of sets, or how to push and pop element from a stack. But suppose you are working on a large project and you need these basic operations again and again, and it is not necessary for integer, or you mean required it for your own data type, like say you have defined a complex class and you need to make a stack of complex numbers, or you need to make a class of or set of complex numbers. But you can write a function or write a class for set, uh, for integer variables or for user defined variables. But if it is possible, if Java has provided you with the collection of inbuilt classes and objects or interfaces which are readily used, which you can just download as it is inbuilt class. Like we are using string class, we have not defined string class by our own. Java in java.lang package has provided a string class, and we can just create object of a string class and work on it and call any method like any other class. So similar to that, Java has provided inbuilt collection of many classes, interfaces of classes like array list, then linked list, then arrays, date, set, hash set, trees, and many more. And the main feature of Java collection framework is all these classes are generalized classes, means these are not defined for any specific data type. For example, stack class. Stack is not defined only for integer. It is generalized. Generalized means it can be used for any data type, primitive as well as user defined data types like any other class. So let's see what is Java collection framework is. You should know what is the meaning of package. So like in C or C++, we have header files, Java hash include stdio.h or hash include iostream.h or string.h. So these are header files, right? Means library files already somebody math.h, somebody already written the functions which are ready to use, or library files. Similarly, in Java, Java comes with the packages. So Java package is a group of similar type of classes, interfaces, and sub packages. So it is like a directory which has files and other subdirectories. So it has a similar type of classes. Suppose math.h file. It has all functions related to math, like square root or factorial, etc. Similarly, when you think about a string class or java.lang package. So lang package has all the classes which are required to write a simple Java program, or util package. It has all the classes which are utilities in Java, or java.net. Net package has all the classes related to networking, socket, and other classes. So there are many packages in Java inbuilt which are available in JDK, Java Development Kit. Uh, the package is nothing but a group of similar classes, interfaces, and subclasses. So package in Java can be categorized in two forms. One is built-in package and another is user-defined package. So when you write a Java program, you need to save it in any directory or package, that is user-defined package. And some are built-in, which are currently available in JDK. So there are many built-in packages such as Java. Java is also package, java.lang. So Java is a package, lang is a package, and then then a string class. Lang is package, AWT, Java X, Swing, Net, IO, Util, SQL, and many more. So we'll see learning of creating user-defined packages. So Java package is used to categorize the classes and interfaces so that they can be easily maintained. So if you are working with Eclipse, first go to the select Java project and then new package, create a package, and in that package create a class or your Java file. So Java package is mainly used for you can easily maintain classes and interfaces at one place. Java package provides access protection. So a data or class which is in one package cannot access class in another package unless and until default access or public access is given. So you are giving access protection to your class. Java package also removes naming collision. So if in one package, if you have a class with name student, you cannot have another class with the name student in the same package, but you can have the same class with the same name in different package. So there will be no naming collision. So this is how Java maintains the hierarchy. First package is Java package, java.lang.system class, java.lang.string class, or java.util.array list class. Disha, mute yourself. So this is a Java package. This is sub package of Java. And these are the classes in those particular packages. This is how Java package hierarchy is. So how to access a package from another package? So import package dot star. So we can just write import java dot star. So all packages you can access, or you can access package dot class name. So java dot lang dot string or java dot lang dot system. So we need to use import keyword. If you use import a package, all classes and interfaces of that package will be imported of the sub package. Hence, you need to import sub packages as well. Java collection framework is available in java.util package. Util is short form for utility. So java.util is important package which contains large assortment of classes and interfaces that support broad range of functionality. Java util has classes that generate pseudo-random numbers. So if you want to generate random numbers, then you can use java.util package. You can use manage date and time, observe events, manipulate set of bits, tokenize string, or handle formatted data. So all the classes related to these functions are available in java.util package. And java.util package also contains Java's most powerful subsystem, which is called the collection framework. Collection framework is sophisticated hierarchy of interfaces and classes that provide state-of-the-art technology for managing groups of objects. Inbuilt objects, classes and interfaces are there which are ready to use. Now these are the classes available in java.util package. Just to look at the variety, it has abstract collection list, map, queue, sequence list. So I don't think you'll understand these keywords yet. Second year you'll understand it better. So it has arrays class, it has calendar class, then hash set, hash map, linked list, stack class, scanner class. We use scanner class to accept variables from the user. Java.util.scanner, we import this class. A random class to accept to generate random numbers. These are again classes which are available in java.util package. It has collection class, it has currency class, date class, dictionary class, timer, time zone, tmap, vector class, and interfaces. Let's start with Java collection framework overview. So Java collection framework standardizes the way in which group of objects are handled in your program. So initially, when Java was introduced in 90s, Java collection framework was not the part of original Java release. Means it won't come directly with JDK, but were added by J2SE 1.2. So the generation Java 2 standard edition 1.2. After that, it becomes the part of standard Java release. Prior to the collection framework, Java provided ad hoc classes such as dictionary, vector, stack, and properties to store and manipulate group of objects. These classes were there but available as separate classes in this package, not as the collection of inbuilt classes. These classes were quite useful. They are lacked the central and unifying theme. So for to access every object, there are different ways to access that object. We needed a unified or a common framework to handle these objects carefully. So how Java framework works? Collection framework was designed to meet several goals. First important goal is framework has to be high performance. Means it is ready to use code. So it should use very optimized algorithm and give high performance. Second thing is the framework had to allow different types of collections. It should not restrict only for integer or only for float. So framework had to allow different types of collections to work in similar manner with a high degree of interoperability. So interoperability is must. The uniform manner, that is similar manner, it should handle all different types of collection in similar manner. And third one is extending or adapting a collection had to be easy. If you want to add your own collection into Java collection framework, it should be easy. So collection framework is a collection of interfaces classes which allows or helps in storing and processing data efficiently. This framework has several useful classes which have tons of useful functions which makes a programmer task super easy. Already readily available classes are with you and you can just use it to create your own project. It is standardized the way in which groups of objects are handled by a program. These are the benefits of Java collection framework. It reduces programming efforts. No need to create a class. Class is already available to you. Increases program speed and quality. So as classes are there, it no need to create a class. So it reduce or increase the speed and quality of rest of the code. allow interoperability among unrelated APIs, application programming interface. You are working on something different, but you are using Java Collection Framework. So you are intercooperating each one of APIs. It reduces the efforts to learn and to use new application programming interface, and reduces efforts to design new APIs and foster software reuse. So reuse is again important feature of object-oriented programming, which is fostered with the help of Java Collection Framework. When JDK5 was released, some fundamental changes were made in collection framework, and then it was significantly increased the power and streamline its use. These changes include addition of generics. Generics means a class can be used for very different types of data types. Then auto boxing and unboxing means converting a uh, variable to its class and class to a variable. Boxing and auto boxing. Then for each style loop. Here we use for loops. For loop has three conditions: initialization, condition, and increment. And for each element of the class, so these are the styles in Python for loop which is used for each. For each element of that particular collection, do this. So this is called for each style for loop, which is available after JDK5. Collection, which is called a container, is simply an object that groups multiple elements into single unit. Collections are used to store, retrieve, manipulate, and communicate aggregate data, means group of data, in the form of list, in the form of tree, in the form of set. So you should able to store that data, retrieve that data, manipulate that data in different manners. They represent data items in the form of natural groups such as poker hand or collection of a card, or mail folder, a collection of letters, a telephone dictionary or directory, a mapping of names with the phone numbers. So any type of data, how you handle that data, that is made in general a common platform. Collection framework is unified architecture of representing and manipulating collections. It has three important features, which is interface, then implementation, and algorithm. So interfaces, these are abstract data types, means it is only the list of methods or prototype how the class should be, that represent collections. Interfaces allow collections to be manipulated independently of details of their representation. Complete abstract class or pure abstract class is called interface. It doesn't give you the declaration of, it is only declaration of method. Method body is not provided in interface. So it gives you a complete freedom to write your own methods in your own way. Implementation is concrete implementation of the collection interface. In essence, they are reusable data structure. Implementation is complete class or concrete class. And algorithms means methods. These are the methods that perform useful computations. For example, searching, sorting on objects that implement collection interface. So the algorithms are said to be polymorphic. That is, the same method can be used to many different implementations of appropriate interface. Collection classes, there are some standard classes that implement collection interface. Some of the classes provide full implementation that can be used as it is, means the class is already available with all the methods, and some are abstract classes which provides just the skeleton or blueprint of its implementation, that it will give you a starting point and you can implement these methods in your own way. So some classes are ready to use, some classes are purposely kept blank, so you can modify it as per your need. So these are the classes: abstract collection, array list, abstract queue, linked list, which are available in Java Collection Framework. From that, we are going to use array list as well as hash set. I think we have time, so go through array list class. So array list class extends abstract list and implement list interface. It is a generic class, can be used for any type of data type. You can define it as class array list, and in triangular bracket you can define the type, for which type you want to create array list. E specifies the type of object that the list will hold. So this E can be simple integer, character, float, double, or it can be your own data type. Like if I have a class complex number or class student, so you can create array list of student or array list of complex number. In Java, standard arrays are of fixed length. So we have studied arrays, and before creating any array, we have to mention size of that array. How we create an array? Integer a of is equal to new integer, and in square bracket we have to mention size. So arrays in Java, normal arrays in Java are of fixed length. But sometimes you not know until the runtime precise how large an array you need. I didn't know how many students will attend my class. So the length of array, I have initialized to 100 and only 50 students attended the class. Rest of the 50 memory location will go waste. And that I don't know whether if 200 students attend the class, then that number of students or memory allocated will not be sufficient. So in that case, we need a dynamic array. Sometimes you may not know until runtime how large your array you need. You didn't know the fixed size of an array that is required for your application. In this situation, we can go with array list. Array list will make array dynamic. It will grow and shrink as you add or delete elements from the array. So in essence, an array list is variable length array of the object references. So what array list holds is an array object reference, and that object can be inbuilt object or that can be user defined object. So array list can dynamically increase or decrease in size. Array lists are created with initial size. You can mention some initial size while creating that array list, and then this size is exceeded and the collection automatically enlarged. So size, if initially you create array list of size 10, and if you add 2 elements, the length of the array list will be 12. If you delete elements, length of the array list will decrease. So when object is removed, array can be shrunk. So to create array list, there are 3 types of constructors available. You can create a blank or array list with default constructor. You can pass a collection, or you can pass a capacity. Capacity means size of array list. So first constructor build an empty array list. Second constructor build array list that is initialized with elements of the collection C. So if you already have a collection or array list made, you can create another array list with the use of previous array list. That's why we are passing a collection. Or not necessarily array list. You can create array list from sets or trees, etc. Third constructor will create an array list which has specified initial capacity. We'll continue with the array list in the next session. I'll give you this example, explain this example in the next session. We'll stop here.